Hello friends, beautiful greetings of the day to all of you. Today, I Kunal Nagpal would like to take this wonderful opportunity to welcome you guys to this great economic session. Dear friends, today we are going to have an overall elaborative discussion on the entire gamut of India's sector's performance in view of bidding the farewell to this current year 2022 and welcoming the new year 2023 with great zeal and great aspiration. I would like to stress upon our sectoral performance, taking a broad overview of all the sectors of the Indian economy, that is, our core areas of strength where we are actually capitalizing in view of the global turmoil which is going on. And what are the further prospects of this ongoing global disturbance? Let's have a brief look on this particular matter. And before beginning this particular discussion, I would let you know our respected Prime Minister's mother, late Srimati Hiraben Modi ji, breathed her last breath yesterday early morning at around 3:30 a.m. So let's pay tribute to her. She was an extremely simple and a very noble and kind-hearted soul, always stressing on the element of purity. A pure and beautiful life is the key to success. That's what her views have always been to the mankind. And because of her so beautiful child nurturing, she has raised the asset of our country, Shri Narendra Modi ji, whom every citizen not only of India but of the entire globe is proud of. Yes, we possess such a wonderful asset on this planet Earth, and that's the result of the wonderful raising being given by Srimati Hiraben Modi ji. Now let's start. Mothers are always special. The mother is the greatest influence in her child's life, especially during the formative years. It is at her feet, in her hands, that the child's character is shaped. She is the first and the chief custodian to introduce culture and ethics to her child. Andrew Jackson, the seventh President of the United States, was brought up by his widowed mother, who worked as a housekeeper to her rich relatives to give her sons a good education. This brave, selfless woman was a source of great inspiration to Andrew in his boyhood. Here are her golden words of advice to her son, who became an orphan when he was just 14 years old. In this world, you must make your own way. To make your own way, you must have friends. You can make friends by being honest and keep them by being steadfast. But they will expect as much from you as they give to you. To forget an obligation or be ungrateful is actually a base crime. Men guilty of it sooner or later suffer the penalty. In personal conduct, always be polite but never frowning. None will respect you more than you respect yourself. Never wound the feelings of others. Never brook wanton outrage upon your own feelings. Calmly vindicate your feelings or defend your honor. It is through the mother that a sense of confidence and self-esteem is instilled in the child. She is the source through which the child can fulfill his dreams. A mother can assume multiple roles and fill the gaps in a child's life, but no one can take her place. This is really beautiful. Now, after going through the overview or having read about the role, about such a crucial role of such a pious element, mother, in the society, we can realize that the contribution of this deity called mother is actually unlimited to the entire society. Yes. Now, as we have discussed about our respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's mother, late Srimati Hiraben Modi ji, what advice did she give to her son? Let's go through it. Before that, let's have a look that how was the health of this great pious lady during her last time. The private hospital where she was admitted issued a statement that Mrs. Hiraben Modi breathed her last at 3:30 a.m. on Friday, that is on 30th December 2022. Mr. Modi had visited her mother in hospital on December 28, soon after she was admitted. Shri Narendra Modi ji, who was scheduled to attend some meetings and programs in Kolkata during the day, rushed to Ahmedabad in the morning. He performed the last rites in the presence of his brothers and other family members at the crematorium in Gandhinagar. In a tribute to his mother, Modi ji said in her, he always found a Trimurti, that is a mix of three ideals, Brahma, Vishnu and Shankar, one who traversed the path of an ascetic, a symbol of selfless service and a life committed to values. In another Twitter post, Modi ji recalled that on her 100th birthday this year, she had told him to work with his brains and live life with purity. These are the key elements to success. Soon after her cremation, Modi ji got back to official work with some alterations in his schedule. This basically tells us that the show must go on. And on this day, when her mother left her mortal coil, he has taught this wonderful lesson to the society that this is how we can pay the true tribute to our ancestors by following the path of Karma Yoga, of doing our work, of conducting all our sessions with full vigor and with full enthusiasm, that same spirit of enthusiasm. And that is the real learning we receive from our parents and ancestors. He flagged off the Howrah New Jalpaiguri Vande Bharat train, the Joka Taratala stretch of Kolkata Metro, and the Namami Gange development through video conferencing. Later, he also attended a National Ganga Council meeting virtually. In his speech, Modi ji expressed regret for not attending the programs in person due to the personal reasons. Born on 18th June 1923, Mrs. Hiraben Modi led an austere life full of struggle and a fight for livelihood. She is survived by 5 sons, Prahlad, Amrit, Somabhai, Pankaj and Narendra, and a daughter, Vasanti Bain. On several occasions, Modi ji asserted that he was greatly influenced by her and often mentioned her struggles in his speeches and writings. He had earlier said that when he embarked on his career as a public servant, his mother had taught him never to take a bribe or allow others to take it. His slogan, "Na khaunga, na khane dunga," that is, will neither take a bribe nor anybody else take it, came from this lesson. Describing her as his guide, whose sacrifices were an inspiration for him, Modi ji said she was an example of somebody who was learned despite having no formal education. Modi ji had basically penned an emotional piece on her last birthday in which he said, "My mother is as simple as she is extraordinary." Just like all mothers, he would visit her every year on her birthday and spend some time with her. Even after his rise to the post of Prime Minister, Mrs. Hiraben treated Modi ji like any mother would treat her son, giving him small amounts of money, feeding him sweets, sharing a meal with him. During his sporadic visits to her residence after becoming the Prime Minister, Modi ji would wash her feet and seek her blessings. The strong bond between the mother and son was visible in these interactions. No member of Modi's family lived in the official residence of the Prime Minister who had abandoned family life after becoming a Swayam Sevak decades back. Mrs. Hiraben lived in a modest house in Ahmedabad. She visited him a few times at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, and pictures released by his office show Modi ji taking her in a wheelchair around the complex. Modi ji had on numerous occasions said his mother worked in the homes of other people in order to earn money and for raising her children. This struggle, the Prime Minister stated, often inspired him to come up with the welfare schemes aimed at women and the poor. Despite her advanced age, Mrs. Hiraben was active till end. In 2017, she stood in a queue outside an ATM to get the new currency post demonetization. These simple gestures also sent out a message of a constant support for the Prime Minister and her extreme level of simplicity and purity. This is really great. And dear friends, not only Modi ji, in fact, all of us can try our best to walk on the principles laid down by our respected parents, and also as a Prime Minister has become such a great idealistic personality in this entire globe, only by walking on the principles taught to him by his mother. Same holds true for all of us. We can learn a lot of things from the personality of this pious lady, late Srimati Hiraben Modi ji. And her life is actually depicting the nomenclature that is Hira Bain, which is actually worth a diamond, and she was the Hira, and she has produced the Hira, that is our hero, Shri Narendra Modi ji. So this is really insightful, really insightful. Now, my dear friends, as we had discussed in the beginning of the session, that we are going to have a broad overview of certain aspects of the Indian economy where we can actually capitalize and strategize in order to make 2023 a great success. So let's bid a proper and effective farewell to the current year 2022 and welcome 2023 with great enthusiasm. And let's have a look to also see how the global economy is functioning and how it is welcoming 2023. So how the world's shaping up to a new order. Let's have a look over it. So, dear friends, this was actually meant to be the year when the world started building back better. That is, we are talking about the year 2022. However, it ended up redefining the world order after several moments on the brink. The global economy, that is the entire global economy, is heading towards recession as liquidity is drained out by synchronized central bank action, although the markets are still betting that it will be a shallow dive. The West and Russia have managed to avert a lingering energy crisis through orchestrated sanctions and the countermeasures. Yet, large parts of the world are still adjusting to the initial shock. The COVID made a resurgence as China lifted the restrictions after widespread protests, but the scale of its spread could affect post-pandemic recovery globally. Currencies have tumbled against the dollar as international capital flows reversed, and globalization has taken a knock with trade fragmenting while the world economy cools down. The biggest break from the past is for the world having to conduct its business with higher borrowing costs and lower asset prices. Credit flow is dying up when the global indebtedness has peaked. The producers will be expected to pull out of a business downturn while the governments struggle to regain the fiscal balance and in some cases trade balance. Productivity enhancing technology is actually facing a funding squeeze and is being subject to more intense antitrust scrutiny across the markets. Banks are having to revalue the credit risk as the era of cheap money draws to a close. So the energy and supply chain resilience will continue to reprioritize the country's strategic interests, while globalization transforms from being resource-led to being innovation-led, because that is actually the need of the hour to innovate on continuous basis. These structural changes may not be the most efficient, such as the attempts at friend shoring, and will affect the world economy's growth potential. Some countries will be able to negotiate the new economic landscape better than others. India, on current evidence, appears to be one of them. The policy orientation over the previous decade places it in the Goldilocks zone. This basically has deleveraged the companies during a phase of during the phase of the bad loan cleanup, and are capable of scaling up the investments. The Indian banks have built strong capital buffers through consumer credit and are in a position to feed demand from industry when it materializes. Neither is RBI's interest rate trajectory as steep as in advanced economies, nor has the rupee fallen as precipitously as the hard currencies. The tax reforms are pushing up the collections, making it easier for the government of India to restore the fiscal equilibrium. The size of its market offers India a cushion against slowing trade. With resource endowments similar to those of China, it can actually exploit the supply chain restructuring alongside its comparative advantage in information technology offshoring. New Delhi is basically cobbling together bilateral trade agreements to expand the market for manufacturing exports promoted through production incentives. This is the year that India's voice carried to a global audience worldwide. Financial markets reacted to the India story with a quick reversal of portfolio capital flows, keeping equity valuations aloft. New Delhi secured access to cheap energy from Moscow without antagonizing the traditional suppliers or the West. India has middle-of-the-road fiscal and trade metrics among the emerging economies after the pandemic and an oil shock, but it has class-leading growth. Policy continuity to sustain this will set it further apart. India is on the course to build back better. I repeat, India is actually on the course to build back better. Now, my dear friends, after going to the core essentials of the Indian economy, its core areas of strength, among the main factors which are responsible for its growth, we have also studied the global scenario which is existing in today's date and how the situations can actually turn in 2023. We have just had a look. Now, we are going to analyze the aspect of how the Indian leaders are strong enough to counter the worst of macro stress, and this has been basically laid down by the Reserve Bank of India. India's banks and non-bank lenders are actually in a position to withstand even the worst of the macroeconomic stress emanating from the global spillovers, and the central bank will actually focus on the management of shocks and building buffers in the financial system. The central bank's latest financial stability report indicates that in a baseline scenario, the gross non-performing assets, that is NPAs, in the banking system will improve to 4.9% by September 2023. The total bad loan ratio of the banking system is actually steadily trending down to a 7-year low of 5.0% in September 2022, while the net non-performing assets have dropped to 10-year low of 1.3% of the total assets. The financial system stress indicator came in at 0.41%. The central bank noted that while the onset of the Russia-Ukraine war triggered a spurt in systemic financial stress, it was at a level milder than what was witnessed during the first wave of the pandemic. So, amidst the global shocks and challenges, the Indian economy presents a picture of resilience. Mr. Shaktikanta, Governor, Reserve Bank of India, noted in the foreword to the FSR. Financial stability has been maintained. Domestic financial markets have remained stable and fully functional. The stress test results presented in this issue of the FSR basically indicate that the banks should be able to withstand even the severe stress conditions should they materialize. The tests also indicate that a severe stress scenario, bad loans for the state-run banks could basically swell from 6.5% in September 2022 to 9.4% in September 2023. For the private sector banks, the bad loans could go up from 3.3% to 5.8% during the same period. In terms of the capital position of banks, the stress tests indicate that the capital to risk weighted assets ratio, that is CRAR, of 46 major banks is projected to slip from 15.8% in September 2022 to 14.9% by September 2023. It may go down to 14.0% in the medium stress scenario and to 13.1% under the severe stress scenario by September 2023. But it will actually stay above the minimum capital requirement. None of the 46 banks would actually breach the regulatory minimum capital requirement of 9% in the next 1 year, even in a severely stressed situation, the RBI tests show. The macro stress tests for the credit risk reveal that the banks are well capitalized and would be able to comply with the minimum capital requirements even under adverse stress scenarios. The central bank noted in its report the banks are capable of absorbing the macroeconomic shocks even in the absence of any further capital infusion by the stakeholders. The Common Equity Tier 1, that is CET1 ratio of 46 banks may actually decline from 12.8% in September 2022 to 12.1% by September 2023. under the baseline scenario. Even in a severely stressed macroeconomic environment, the aggregate common equity tier 1 capital ratio would deplete only by 210 basis points, which would not breach the minimum regulatory regimes. All credits go to the strong dynamics of the Indian economy, be it the banking sector, financial sector, or the economic sector. So dear friends, that's all for the current session, and I really believe that you have been benefited immensely with this great productive session, as we have discussed the great insights of the Indian economy and what all we can actually expect in 2003 as of now, discussing the basic credentials of the Indian economy amid the overall functioning of the global economy, the overall status of the global economy as of now. We have also discussed about the main traits of Shri Narendra Modi ji, which he has actually inherited from his late mother, Srimati Hiraben Modi ji, who is actually an inspiration to not only Shri Narendra Modi ji, to not only the citizens of our motherland India, but to the entire globe. And this concept of learning the great principles holds true for all the children across the globe to actually inherit the traits of their parents in order to build a very strong in order to build a very strong and pure character, which is the basis for leading a successful life. So thank you so much for your patient and cooperative listening. I hope you have been able to absorb a lot from this session. Thank you so much. And I really believe that you have subscribed to my YouTube channel, so that you must be getting notified with the important economic updates on regular basis. And you are welcome to post your queries, to post your suggestions in the comment section, so that the same can be incorporated in the subsequent videos. And also, I would try my best to answer your queries at my best possible level, so that your doubts can be resolved. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.